Welcome to part 2 of my DIY video on how to make your house more energy efficient using DIY and attention to detail with basic maintenance tips. I just want to show you a few areas which I've improved on my property using a thermal camera initially to identify it, but I've subsequently realised the thermal camera is not essential. Inspection can be of more value. The first area I'd like to show you, these pipes here, there were gaps around them, and then this is a trifold door, so just move the camera in, you may be able to see fresh caulking round there. There's quite a big gap, and this brings us back to our last video on, well, when I ended the last video it was on an air brick, so we've got air being blown in. Air was blowing through that gap there and chilling my conservatory down quite considerably. I've moved into the house a bit further now, and now we're on radiators. Obviously we've got the floor area below us, so we've got air coming up, trying to find an escape route. So the next thing to check is the area around your pipework. A lot of plumbers are quite careless and remove quite a lot of your floor, so quite substantial gaps around there. You may be able to see some dust staining in the video. If you see any dust staining, that means there's airflow which has got dust in. So get some caulk, give it a good seal. So we've moved on now to a cupboard under the stairs. This was a particularly cold spot. My thermal camera reacted quite heavily and showed me quite staggering temperature difference in here. So I opened the cupboard, cleared everything out of it, and then proceeded basically to seal. It ended up with me with a head in the cupboard for approximately half an hour. And what I was basically doing, easiest to show you on the outside, is caulking this area here and that area. I actually used 1.5 tubes of decorator's caulk sealing this. It's just an area which had been neglected since the property was built in 1997. Also, the flooring was quite ill-fitted, so I spent a bit of time with the expanding foam sealing the flooring. I think that's probably due to it being a confined space that workmen can easily shut the door on and forget. Next thing I would like to show you is light switches and sockets. The same principle applies to both. What was happening here, this is a dry lined house, so I suspect air was blowing up the dry lining and finding a way out in the socket. So I could always feel a draft around these light switches. So a good test for this is to wet the back of your hand and just offer it up, and if you can feel a draft, you can then work on eliminating it. What I did is I took the covers off and got some decorator's caulk and filled the area where the cable enters the patras box. Also, you can do the same for light switches. Undo the ceiling rows, make sure the power is off, and just reduce the area which the cable goes in to the width of the cable by filling in with decorator's caulk. I also have an internal garage door, so I do treat this like an external door. Once again, I've added some Draught excluder. It did have an original seal there. I've topped it up with a bit of Draught excluder. There were drafts entering the property. And at the lower of the door, you can see there's a brush seal which I've added. That's just to keep out drafts. As I've got the door opening, I'm feeling the draft from outside entering the house. Another area which caused concern to me was the extractor fan. This particular extractor fan wasn't sealed correctly to the pipe, and there were quite big voids around the big pipe which goes through the wall. And so I removed it, siliconed the extractor fan to the pipe and filled in all the gaps around it with expanding foam. As you can see, there's quite a bit of damage to the left which I've yet to repair. But the good news is it now makes a different noise, and I think it's doing its job more effectively. While we're on the subject of extractor fans, this is the kitchen extractor fan. There were quite a few gaps around that. Often it's hard to find these gaps because they're in awkward places to work. So I resorted to getting a bit of decorator's caulk on my finger and pressing it in places, because you just couldn't get access with the caulk gun. As you can see to the left, there are a couple of pipes. There was a big hole in the middle of the two pipes, so I filled that in just to increase its thermal resistance. It was probably a really good escape point. You only really need one good escape point to make a room permanently cold, I've found. Also at that level, you've got various things around your house with cables in. The PIR, I took the time to find the cable, traced it back and sealed the hole up with decorator's caulk once again. It's a really cheap method. The cost for this is absolutely minimal. I'd like to show you the Nest thermostat. Currently my house is 24 degrees and the external temperature in late August is 17 degrees, so we're tracking quite a bit above the external temperature. That's something I always keep an eye on. I find it pays just to watch your thermostat, see what it's doing. After you do every little tweak, you can check your thermostat, see if you get an increase. Obviously that will be affected by the weather outside. Well, here's my Nest home report. As you can see, we haven't used any gas to heat the house for the last 10 days. I'm going to end this video on the stairway. I've took steps to seal either side with decorator's caulk, and also with this being a dry line property, I've also sealed any fittings to the wall, just removed the screws, put a smear of decorator's caulk and reinstated them, because I did notice thermal losses were going through the walls. The walls in dry line properties frequently blow air. I've undone these screws here and sealed them in for the coat hook. Join me in part 3 of the video where we're going to be covering the upper floor, and we're going to be going through some more tips and tricks. Please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.